I'm going to show you exactly what $1 million, $2 million, and $3 million buys you in Victorian commercial property market. There's so much talk about commercial property, but I want to show you today, what does it actually look like? I'm Ben Carrington from Compound Property Buyers Agency, where we special in commercial and residential property investment. We've helped clients purchase commercial properties across a number of different states and price points, but today I want to focus in on Victoria and show you across $1 million, $2 million, and $3 million price points. I'm going to show you how they compare as far as deposit you need, cash flow they gain, the types of tenants you can expect, the lease terms you can expect, and how they differ from each other. Today, I'm going to compare side by side so you can see exactly what to expect as far as the cash flow you can expect, the deposit that you'll need, the locations that we're buying, the asset types, as well as the lease terms that you can expect in these assets. So here's what we're going to be covering. First, I'll show you a real life example at each of these three price points. Second, we'll compare yields, cash flow, tenant quality, and asset types across the three price points. And third, I'm going to show you which property type at the moment I think is a hidden gem and overlooked by a number of investors. Let's dive in. Okay, so let's go into the $1 million example. So today, I'm going to show you exactly what $1 million buys you in Victoria in the commercial property market. But like always, I don't like hypotheticals. I'm going to show you real life examples of real properties that we have bought real clients in 2025. These are properties that we have sourced and negotiated on behalf of clients in 2025. Let's go into the $1 million example. Now, firstly, the reason I'm not showing you anything less than that is because in reality, in today's market, commercial property really does start at $1 million. And that is a bit of a downside. It's not cheap and we're not going to sugarcoat it. So it's not for everyone, and especially not at the start of your journey, but it's what a lot of people aspire to buy. Here's what $1 million buys you. Now, I'm going to open this property up. So this property, as you can see, it actually was very well presented. It's an industrial property, meaning it's a warehouse. It is in a strata complex, so there's only not too many in the block, which is good. You can see here it presents really well. Concrete construction. You got a roller door. You got a number of 4 car parks on title. So as far as the property, it presents really well. It's only a few years old. So the property is 351 square meters. You've got 6 car parks on title. This type of property would appeal to a number of different tenants. So if we have a look firstly, the location, this is in Kilsyth, which is 36 kilometers from the CBD of Melbourne. So we're actually in a capital city and we're buying something at $1 million price point. As far as the size, it's 350 square meters. So it's not a huge property, but it's not too small either. So it would have a lot of appeal to a number of different tenants. As far as the tenant, now in these types of price points, you're not getting an ASX quality tenant, but you are getting really strong small and medium business. But the thing with these properties is you're not buying them for the tenant either. You need a versatile space, knowing that the tenant could either go out of business, obviously in the worst case, or they could expand, which is a really common thing too, meaning that they outgrow the space. But as long as you can get another tenant, then that's the most important thing. You're not buying it for the tenant. You're not buying McDonald's or a Bunnings or something like that. Now, in these price points, a typical lease is you're kind of getting your 2 to 5 years. So you're unlikely to get a 10 or 20 year lease at these price points. Probably a 3 to 5 year would be the most common, with different options as well. So that's how you need to think about it. You'll most likely have a new tenant every 5 years. So let's have a look at the numbers of this property. So we actually bought this property at 1.1 million. The yield at the time was 6% net. Now, the benefit of commercial, it's net of expenses, meaning that the tenant pays things like strata, insurance, property management, land tax, all of those expenses if you can get a triple net lease. It means the annual rent of this property is $65,000. The deposit required, there's no way around it. You do need a 30% deposit plus costs like stamp duty and things like that. So it came to $402,000. The net cash flow on this property is $11,000 a year. So as you can see, it's not crazy to begin with, right? But what I do like to see is typically a commercial property will pay itself down in 10 to 12 years. So you're getting 11,000 positive cash flow today, but in 10 years time, with just basic rental increases, the rent is sitting around $90,000 per year. So if you can get it paid off, this one asset could deliver a $90,000 passive income in around 10 years and pushing up to the 100K beyond that. So one good asset is going to get you to a good income target, but it's not going to shoot the lights out day one. So who is this good for? This is good for someone who wants to get into commercial because you've got a relatively safe asset You don't need too big a tenant for this property. It's got a good positive cash flow, and you are buying in a really strong location of Melbourne. Now, let's go to the $2 million property. So this to me is an asset class that is really often overlooked. And to me, it presents a huge amount of opportunity at the moment. So this is a $2 million commercial property, but it's not really, because this is a residential unit block. So you're probably asking, why are you classing this as a commercial? Well, that's how the banks class it. So basically any unit block that has over 4 units is typically classed as a commercial property. Now, there might be 1 or 2 banks that will go up to 4, or go up to 5 or 6. But like typically speaking, if you've got more than 4 units, either on one title or strata titled, the banks will consider it a commercial property, and the commercial financing will be required, meaning you need 30% deposit. You'll often see these properties on realestate.com and Real Commercial because they really kind of a bit of both. The reason I love them though is because you're getting the safety and the simplicity of residential, but you're getting a strong cash flow of commercial. So let's have a look at this property. So this is a block of 6 one-bedroom units. Now you can see it was built probably around the 70s, presented nicely, nothing crazy, but was really well maintained. We got the building and pest report and everything. Everything was looking really good. Now, what was incredible about this purchase and why I see really good value at the price point is this was actually in Melbourne once again. The reason we're buying down in Melbourne is because it's really underperformed in the last few years. So we're seeing a lot of good value there. This property wasn't on the outskirts though. This probably wasn't in some kind of unknown suburb. This is in Elwood, which for many people might know St Kilda. It's kind of like the Bondi of Melbourne, kind of. But it is a super blue chip suburb of Melbourne. Incredible actually. So the land value alone on this property being in Elwood was $1.8 million. Now we paid $2.1 million for this. So you can see a significant upside over the long term. And just on the location, if we zoom in on Elwood, you've got to think about when you're buying a unit block, who wants to live there, right? Because you've got 6 tenants, it needs to be attractive. So these are affordable rents in a really, really strong blue chip suburb. So you can see you've got 4 to 5 minutes walk to the beach. You can be in St Kilda, and you've got plenty of trams and train access to get into the city as well. So really appealing area for tenants. As far as the size, so a property like this, it's 450 square meters of land. So as I mentioned before, the land value, we calculated it at 4,000 a square meter, meaning the land value alone on this property comes to $1.8 million. So you're almost getting a block of 6 units for nothing. And you can imagine in today's market to build 6 one-bedroom units, you're probably looking at a minimum $300K per unit. So you're buying this well under replacement costs. As far as the tenant, the reason I like residential unit blocks is because the tenant is just a typical residential tenant. So you're not getting the 3 or 5 year lease terms, obviously, that you would be in a commercial, but they're very easy to replace, these tenants. So in this particular unit block, we had some people that have been there for 10 years, but as typically tenants stay around 18 months. I think that's the national average across there, but you always know that you're going to fill the space really quickly. So this is for a person who doesn't want to take on that kind of commercial risk. So per unit, the market rent on these was $430 a week, which across $2,580 a week, $134,000 a year. Now, being residential, and this is the downside, you do have to pay the expenses. So we're looking at things like property management, insurance, council rates and land tax. That comes to around $25,000 a year. It brings it to a 5.2% net yield. So it's not the strongest cash flow, but it's great for a blue chip location. And you're also going to get significant capital uplift in this property. So let's go to the numbers now. So to purchase this, it was $2.1 million. As I mentioned, the gross yield was 6.5%, but the net yield was 5.2%. The annual rent was $134,000. The deposit required, so because it's a residential property, but it is considered a commercial, the deposit required was $755,000, which is 30% plus costs. You then have a net annual cash flow of $16,000 to begin with. So it's not amazing to start. But as I mentioned, as you start to pay these properties down in 10 years, the net income is $143,000 in 10 years. So in 10 years time, you could have $143,000 passive income in a relatively safe way where you're not going to have major vacancy. You don't need to have strong lease negotiations. You've just got 6 very nice standard residential tenancies. So who is this for? This is a property that's for someone who has a larger deposit, but they don't want to go fully into commercial. So a residential unit block is a great mix between residential safety and commercial cash flow. Something that I really like. They're not everywhere. They're hard to find, but for the right client, they can be really, really good buys. Now we go into the $3 million property. At Compound Property, we consider commercial properties and unit blocks as legacy properties. And this property is exactly why. A legacy property is a property that you want to hold as long as you possibly can and possibly hand it down to future generations. Let me pull up an example of a $3.5 million buy that we made this year that I would say as legacy property as they come. So if we pull the property up, you can see this is a retail centre. So it has 6 tenants, a number of car parks on a large land holding in a retail precinct in Ballarat. So Ballarat, as far as location, Ballarat is a very strong regional centre in Victoria. This is in a major retail location too. So when you're buying a retail asset, you want to have foot traffic or you want to have good car parking and you want to have good accessibility for customers. This is surrounded by national brands and you may have heard of a few of these. You've got Woolworths, McDonald's and KFC to name a few. So this is in a really premium spot. As far as the size of this property, so you get 3,323 square metres of prime commercial zone land, and you've got 1,287 square metres of net lettable area too. So really important, there's a lot of retail space to be rented. As far as the tenant mix, so this is what we call a multi-tenanted properties. I like to think when you're spending a few $1 million, I really like multi-tenanted investments. And the reason for that is even if you lose one tenant, you've still got income coming in. You never go to zero. So the 6 tenants in this property included Subway, there's a bottle shop, there's a supermarket called Not Quite Right. So they're all really recession-proof and internet-proof tenants. So these are things that people are always going to need. And it shows because I think Subway had been there for nearly 20 years. The bottle shop and the supermarket have been there for a long time as well. So really good mix of tenants. So as far as the lease terms, they call it a whale in commercial. So it's not a big creature that swims in the ocean. It is the weighted average lease expiry. So across the 6 tenants, how long on average until the leases expire? I think this had a 4 or even 5 year whale. But as I mentioned, some of these tenants have been there for 20 years. So some of them are kind of lifelong tenants. As far as value add to, this is what I love about these large commercial because there's not as many buyers. There still are quite a lot. But this property we calculate is around 20% under rented. So as we increase the rents over time, there is a big value uplift to be had on this property. So let's go into the numbers of this property. So the purchase price for this, as I mentioned, was $3.5 million, meaning that the yield was a 6.4% net yield. So really strong yield. Now, in Victoria, there is a rule. If you're buying in regional Victoria, some locations, you get a 50% concession on stamp duty. So including that, so the deposit plus plus the cost came to $1.15 million. So it's not a small amount and it's not for everyone, but this is what people aspire to buy. The net cash flow from year 1 was $69,000. So you can see we're getting really up there now in cash flow. That's quite a significant amount. And if you're to let this property pay itself down in 10 years time, 10 to 12 years time, you're going to have roughly $309,000 of passive income. So you can see just one property like this can give you a very, very comfortable retirement. So as far as who this property is for, it's not for your first timer. This is a seasoned investor. You obviously need a large deposit. There's a lot of due diligence involved, but overall, this is a legacy property that you could hold for a significant amount of time and deliver a passive income for many years ahead. So there you have it. I've now shown you what's out there in the marketplace at $1 million, $2 million, and $3 million. Commercial property, it's not for everyone and it's not as well known as residential, but as you can see, if you buy it right, you can create a strong passive income and get great capital growth opportunity as well. It's not for everyone and commercial property does have a lot of risks to mitigate, which we'll cover in a separate video. And another thing with commercial, as you can see here, the higher that you go, typically the better the assets get and the better the opportunities. If you want help building a property portfolio that's right for you, speak to us at Compound Property Buyers Agency because we help people buy residential and commercial properties depending on what is the best step for you. We specialize in sourcing high cash flow, high growth, residential and commercial properties across the country. As far as service, we help you from the whole way through. So we start with strategy, acquisition, ongoing management, and 6 monthly reviews. So if you're unsure what step to make next, you're unsure how to get to your goal, make sure you get in touch with us with the link in the description below. Thanks for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed and seen what it takes to buy a $1, $2, and $3 million commercial property in 2025.